Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rick Shanklin, Morning Coordination Meteorologist at the National Weather Service here in Paducah, Kentucky. And we thought we'd try something new today, the first ever go at a YouTube live session here at the National Weather Service in Paducah. So feel free to give us your comments as we go through this afternoon, any suggestions, because we want to provide something that is beneficial to you. So again, let us know what you think throughout the period this afternoon. We do have somebody on the chat session, so feel free to ask questions that way as well. But anyway, with that, what we're talking about this afternoon is, of course, our severe weather threat that we have across our region. Primarily tonight, begins this afternoon. We already have a tornado watch in effect that we'll be talking about here shortly. But we do have a significant risk of severe weather across the region, especially late tonight, which is of great concern, especially with the nighttime tornado threat across our region. That's been one of our, well, that's where we see most of our fatalities in our region that our office covers, which, by the way, is right here, 58 counties, parts of 4 states. So if you're not familiar with our region, this is it. This is the area that the National Weather Service in Paducah has a responsibility to provide warnings and watches for all types of hazardous weather. So anything that I refer to statistically basically will be for this specific area here, at least for the most part, or unless I state otherwise as we go through the course of the afternoon. So getting right to the point of why we are talking this afternoon, we have a level 4 of 5 levels, or a moderate risk area across a good part of that area that we cover, of course, which includes southeast Missouri, southern Illinois, southwest Indiana, and western Kentucky. And that's significant. We don't get those very often. Only about 4 times a year do we see a moderate risk somewhere in our county warning area. So this is one of those days you really need to stay alert to the weather as it develops and be prepared to take action. Absolutely ensure you have a way to get the watches and warnings. Previous graphic was for through tonight. This graphic is for tomorrow. Now, for our area, it's basically going to be a Wednesday morning event. It will not extend into the afternoon for us, but this covers that entire period from about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning until 6 o'clock Thursday morning. So that's why it's on to the east there. So it looks like the dynamics may not be quite as impressive tomorrow as today. Therefore, the risk is not as great. That will be looked at, of course, closely as we progress the day tomorrow. To give you a little bit more description of what a level 4 or a moderate risk equates to, and this is the entire scale, all the 5 severe weather risk categories, plus some days we just expect thunderstorms without a risk. So that would be this particular bracket here. But again, we're over a good part of our area to the level 4, which means widespread severe storms likely. Long-lived, widespread, and intense storms are possible, including ones that can produce strong tornadoes. Strong tornadoes, basically an EF2 or EF3 tornado. Widespread wind damage, destructive hail of 2 inches or bigger, and that's larger than golf ball size even. So those things are possible within that level 4 risk area in our region. And the rest of our area is under at least a slight to an enhanced risk, and even that is a pretty serious level in the enhanced risk in particular. So again, this is the area of concern. This is the bullseye for this particular event, which includes a good part of our area. Certainly could be adjusted, has already been adjusted in the updates from our Storm Prediction Center through the course of the day. So continue to watch that as it evolves and any associated weather. I mentioned this earlier, but this is all of the different moderate risk days that we've had in our region since 2006, so about the last decade or so. This is how many moderate risk days we've had on average. 2006 actually was the most at a dozen. But if you average all of that out, we average about 4.4 moderate risk days somewhere, again, in that area we cover. but at a given point, maybe at your location, that's only occurred a couple times. It would be definitely less, and probably half or less of that number at a specific location. So this is a pretty serious deal, is the reason we are talking about this afternoon. Our last main moderate risk day was December 23rd, 2015. We did have several tornadoes across our area. Fortunately, they did remain in the weak range, relatively speaking. Obviously, any tornado is very dangerous. So just to, again, that's to kind of put things into perspective for you. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper now into the risk category. And it's important, and this gets a bit more technical, but at least you can see the area that's of most concern, which basically straddles the Laurel Ohio River Valley right here in our region, because that is a 15% risk of what we call significant tornadoes, significant severe. For tornadoes, that means strong tornadoes, an EF2 or EF3. And just to tell you exactly what it means there's a 15% risk of a strong tornado within 25 miles of any given point within this red zone. The yellow zone, a 10% probability of an F2 or F3 tornado within 25 miles of that point. The hail risk is quite high. This is pretty unusual indeed to see the hail risk this high, but the hatched area means hail that could be 2 inches or larger, and that's as high as 45% across that same area with the higher tornado threat, but also extending much further to the northwest. So especially Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and the Ohio River region of western Kentucky, that hail and that tornado threat is where it is the highest. We already have a tornado watch in effect across our region. Hopefully you already received this. It is in effect until 9 o'clock this evening. It's tornado watch number 41. That just simply means it's the 41st watch of 2017. And that covers most of our area, basically excludes western Kentucky and the Missouri foothill at this time. Certainly as the system progresses eastward through the course of the night, other watches are certainly possible and probably likely in the rest of our area. So don't think you're out of the woods for the event. It just means for the time being we're not expecting severe weather, including the tornado threat in your particular area. I'll mention this too, and you'll see this at the bottom of the watch if you go like on the Storm Prediction Center website, among other places. But you can see the different threats, and for tornadoes, the likelihood for this particular watch is high. A moderate likelihood of EF2 or stronger tornadoes, and those are high numbers for a watch. Severe wind, moderate, 65 plus, not plus winds at 75 miles an hour or greater. Low risk of that. Ironically, the main concern with this system is severe hail and tornadoes. And the severe hail, that's hail of at least 1 inch in diameter, is high. 2 inch or bigger hail, a moderate risk of that. So very much of concern with this particular watch. In addition to the severe weather threat, we have some expectation of flooding concerns, especially as we progress overnight and into the morning hours of Wednesday. And as a result of that, we have a flash flood watch in effect for our region tonight. So don't forget about that. Sometimes in severe weather episodes, it's easy to kind of lose sight of the flooding concern, which is very real. We have a nationwide flooding deaths are the #1 cause or #1 result from severe thunderstorms in general. And tornadoes #2 in our region. It's actually reversed from that, but a very real risk of flooding from that as well. Okay, with that, I think we'll pause a minute and do something a little bit different. And then I want to talk about some of the preparedness actions for severe weather, and especially this nighttime tornado threat, which again is the #1 concern with this particular event, because we know people are twice as likely to die in a tornado at night versus any time of the day, any other time of the day. But I want to pause a little bit, and we got Chris Knowles, who's one of our lead forecasters, and he's going to join me now for a few minutes, and just kind of get some insight from Chris on this particular event. So Chris, if you want to come on in, we'll talk about that for a little bit, and then we'll pick back up with the different preparedness actions, which is very important. Okay, Chris, yeah, that's good. Chris, you've been looking at the event now for, I know you've been on shift, since the weekend?
Right.
And you've been looking at it today, and we've been discussing kind of in comparing this event to some of the others. So how would you kind of maybe classify it or compare it to some of the other events in our area?
It certainly reminds me of, in some respects, May 6, 2003. It reminds me a little bit of Evansville. It's every event is different. So when I think of May 6th, I think of how strong the winds were aloft and how humid and unstable it was that day. We're not quite to that degree. Evansville, the winds were extremely strong at all levels of the atmosphere. So it reminds me of that particular night. All the parameters are there as far as the degree of shear, the amount of wind shear in the atmosphere. Where we're at right now, I'd like to see a little more of that air come out of Arkansas, where they're in the upper 70s to around 80 with dew points in the mid 60s, but I think it'll make it. And what's so concerning about this particular event is the amount of wind shear. It's more than adequate for all modes of severe weather, including the concern for strong tornadoes.
Yeah, and when you mention wind shear, of course, that's a change in wind speed and or direction, but with this, we not only have the wind, what we call wind speed shear, an increase in wind speed as you go up, but we also have pretty impressive wind directional shear, don't we?
We sure do. I noticed in the last hour or two, the winds over southeast Missouri backed from a south-southwest direction to a more southerly direction, and that's more favorable as far as the winds that flow into severe thunderstorms, and in particular supercell storms. So that's a more favorable unfolding of the current winds at the surface. And then just off the surface, the winds are strong from the southwest, and then at jet stream level, 24,000, 25,000 feet up, they're almost straight out of the west and well over 100 miles per hour. So you have it all. You have the turning of the winds with height, and you have the increasing wind speed with height, which is speed shear. So again, plenty unstable, but the wind shear is very, very concerning to me personally.
Let's shift gears a little bit, maybe talk about the timeline of this event, what we expect when. That's one question. We had a conference call this morning with our emergency managers and other partners there, and that's one of the, probably the most common question we get is, when's it going to hit my particular area? So based on what we talked about today, how would you kind of categorize the timeline across the area for starting in southeast Missouri and southern Illinois and progressing east?
Sure. Right now we have a few storms, one of which has been severe in the Springfield, St. Louis area. We're watching areas from the southern Missouri region, the Ozarks down into Arkansas, where it's increasingly unstable. So over the next 2 hours or so through 5 or 6 o'clock, we're going to be concerned and honing in on areas where discrete cells could develop and move out of northern Arkansas and southern Missouri into, say, southeast Missouri, southwest Illinois, through the late day and evening hours, and then that will continue eastward, and then and that could be 7, 8, 9 o'clock, say southern Illinois, west Kentucky, and then a little bit later, the farther east you go towards, say, Evansville and the Kentucky Pennyroyal. And then there's a secondary concern overnight as the actual upper system and the surface cold front move in, and so multiple time frames of concern. That in particular could be 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and maybe even early morning in again, the Kentucky Pennyroyal. So once we get the ball rolling here at 5 or 6 o'clock, from then on, you need to be prepared for more than one round of severe weather. And again, we'll focus through sunset on southeast Missouri and southwest Illinois for activity that could come out of northern Arkansas and southern Missouri.
Okay, good. Anything else that sticks out to you about this event, or any other, general comments you have about the severe weather episode, like this and the nighttime threat compared to others in the past?
I would say, it's February 28th. The storms this time of year move 50 to 60 plus miles per hour, and I've heard conversation in the past. You've talked about it. It was a concern during Brookport that sometimes people need visual confirmation.
Yeah.
And, to actually believe that a tornado is going to affect them. I wish that you would not wait for that visual confirmation. You may not have time. The speed of these storms, very impressive. And, I anticipate, being radar operator this evening, that many of the warnings will only be 30 minutes long, and then you're going to need to put out another warning, say upstream or downstream. And these are going to be fast movers. So when you hear the warning, you need to react because it could be on you very, very quickly. So.
And speaking of the warnings, that's something that interests people, I think, quite a bit. Just maybe give a little insight of what maybe a kind of a typical scenario. What goes into the warning decision process? How do we decide to issue a tornado warning? What all goes into the thought process of that, as far as information, whether it's data, reports, etc.
Sure, it could be radar based if we don't have any reports into us, and of course we're looking at wind velocity signatures, the strength of the velocities that we're seeing, the rotational aspect. If it meets our criteria, we'll put out a tornado warning. Obviously, a spotter report, validates what we're seeing on radar and strengthens our confidence. So spotter reports are very, very important, and especially timely ones. And once we are ready to issue the warning, we draft it up based on the storm's movement. And the storms tonight will be moving east-northeast or from the south-southwest at 50 to 60 miles per hour. So we try to encompass the threat area with our polygon, hone in on that, and draw it out in time, say where we expect the storm to be over the next 30 minutes. Watch the evolutionary aspect through the polygon, and then decide if we need to put out another warning upstream, whether the storm has continued to be severe and produce a tornado potentially, or if it's weakened. As important as the severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings are, we also provide follow-up intermediate statements that are severe weather statements, and sometimes those, many times we have up-to-date information that was not in the original severe thunderstorm warning, and we might ramp up the wording. If we put out a tornado warning and it's based on radar, then we get a report. We're going to provide a follow-up statement, say within 10 or 15 minutes, however soon we get the report, could be 5, and we're going to talk about that tornado being seen by spotters and that we've got confirmation. So there's very important information in the statements that go out in addition to the initial warnings.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, and that's, there's a lot that goes into the warning operations here at the National Weather Service in Paducah. As Chris was talking primarily about the warning forecaster and everything, but we have a full team here at the National Weather Service in Paducah. A given episode, we might have 5 to 8. We've had times where we've had 10 to 15 here on the operational floor. It depends on this magnitude of the event, but know that we, of course, here are around the clock and as diligent as we can possibly be. That's our passion here, and we're all trying to do everything we can do to keep everyone out there as safe as we can. But anyways, Chris, any other comments of anything related to that? I had one, and it just.
You thought of one you don't remember now?
Yeah.
No, I can't think of anything else. It's just, we have not had a lot of severe weather over the last 3 years, or at least not to this degree.
Yeah.
So it's easy for people to, I don't know if complacency is the right word, but just it's time to ramp things up. I don't know how else to say it. Prepare now and be ready. And again, don't wait to try to confirm it by standing outside to see it coming at your front porch. If you get the warning, go ahead and take shelter. It's not worth your life. These things are going to be moving extremely fast, and that's the main thing with me with this event.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point in that, and you mentioned it earlier as well, and that's something that frankly we saw in the Mayfield tornado was the lack of people taking shelter immediately. Many of those people knew about the warning, they got the warning maybe through weather radio or other means, and they elected for whatever reason to do what you said and wait till they had visual confirmation of the tornado, or at least had some confirmation of some damage close by as approaching. And I was thinking yesterday, there were at least 3 occasions where I talked to people that they cut it literally to the very last seconds before they took shelter. And in a couple of those cases, it very nearly, I think, cost a couple people their lives. So as Chris said, please don't wait to take shelter at the very last second. You know, the warnings are not in effect that long. You know, go ahead and take shelter when the warning is issued. If you looked at the total time, for example, that you're under a tornado warning for a given year, it's really a very small amount of time. So definitely want to stress that key point.
This is all about preparedness too. We're using a lot of strong language today, and you know, the parameters support using strong language. You know, we're not in the business to scare anybody, but when the parameters look like this, you know, we want to ramp up the language. But it's all about preparedness, and perhaps, you know, it could be exactly like we say. Maybe it won't be, and I think most people would be okay with that in the end. But it's about preparedness, and it's better to be safe than sorry. And you can wake up tomorrow and, you know, and you're still here, and you know, lives matter, people matter. That's what this is all about. So, you know, preparedness.
Yeah, it is. And all right, well, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, and
Anytime.
We'll kind of continue on here and go through some of the preparedness things that Chris just mentioned. And it is, you know, preparedness is vital anytime, but it's absolutely vital for these nighttime tornadoes. I said in the conference call this morning that there's hardly anything that gets to me more than a major risk of severe weather, as we have tonight, for an overnight hour. Because of that overnight tornado threat and resultant factors. In this graphic here, it's a very sobering graphic. This is all the fatalities in our region from 1996 to 2016. So the last 20 years we have had, you may not be able to see this, but we've had 55 fatalities in our region. This is where all the fatalities occurred. Again, this is just for the 58 county area that our office serves. But this is the location of all the fatalities and the number of fatalities. The 2 greatest number of fatalities, Harrisburg, Illinois, which ironically today is the 5-year anniversary of that violent tornado that claimed 8 lives at 4:51 a.m. The Evansville, Indiana tornado that claimed 25 lives. Actually, this is from 2 different counties. But the same tornado track, 20 lives in Evansville, Vanderburgh County, and 5 in Warwick County at 2 a.m. So those 2 events alone accounting for 33 fatalities, and many of the rest of these, in fact all the ones you'll see now in yellow, occurred overnight, nighttime tornadoes that caused these fatalities. So that's why we say, and we really emphasize, the nighttime tornado threat. Again, people are twice as likely to die in a tornado at night, 2.5 times as likely to die in a tornado between midnight and 6 a.m. 80% of the deaths are with nighttime tornadoes. Just a little bit more about that, and I pretty much covered this. Again, 2.5 times more likely, and this is actually a survey conducted by Northern Illinois University. That came up with those stats. Unfortunately, they mirror that very closely right here in our region, which has among the highest frequency of nighttime tornadoes anywhere in the country. Arkansas, Kentucky, and Tennessee have the highest frequency, and really if you broke it down to a region, it would be pretty much centered across our area. So that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is across our part of the world. And 60% of the nighttime tornado fatalities were in mobile homes. So the 2 biggest areas of concern we have are nighttime tornadoes and people that reside in mobile homes. If you reside in a mobile home, your thought process should always be to have a backup location that you can take shelter, a family member, a neighbor's, a friend close by, something like that, somewhere you can go and take shelter in a regular structured stick-built type house or other structure. Again, 55 fatalities, 42 of those 55, again, this is in our region, so this is not a national thing, this is right here in our region. 42 of the 55 occurred in mobile homes. 11 occurred in permanent homes. Actually, several of those were in the Harrisburg, Illinois tornado. And 4 occurred in vehicles. It's another dangerous place. You need to abandon your vehicle for a substantial structure rather than staying in the vehicle. By month, 30 and just 2 that I think of, 25 occurred again in that Evansville tornado 2005, 3 in the Brookport, Illinois tornado November 17, 2013. So the nighttime tornadoes, again, altogether 43 out of the 55 fatalities. 36 of those 43 occurred between midnight and sunrise. So again, unfortunately, that pretty much our numbers pretty much mirror those for the nation. 14 killer tornadoes that have occurred since 1996 in our area, and those nighttime has accounted for 1/2 of those killer tornadoes. A little bit more on that. 0 fatalities with the 3 daytime violent tornadoes. That should speak a volume right there. Even though they were violent tornadoes, we had no fatalities. They occurred in the daytime. 10 fatalities with the 2 EF4s that occurred at night, and all others were actually with EF3s and EF2s. So they tend to be more of 1, 2, 3 fatalities with those tornadoes, but we get more of those tornadoes and they cause more of the individual instances of the tornado fatalities. This is the lone picture of the infamous Evansville tornado that claimed 25 lives, taken from Deaconess Hospital on the east side of Evansville looking south toward the tornado. It was lit up by lightning there, again November 6, 2005. Some of the dangers of nighttime tornadoes, more difficult and dangerous to see by trained spotters and the public at night. And a vast majority of people, of course, are in bed. And that's why it's absolutely vital you have a way to be alerted for nighttime tornadoes. A weather radio, a cell phone. You can get alerts through there, through computers and different tablets and so forth. You can set up. There's means to get the warnings through those as well. But most people aren't watching TV or listening to the radio overnight, so that's great to do that, but you got to have a way first to be alerted to know to do that. Outdoor warning sirens are called outdoor warning sirens for a reason, and that is because they are meant for people outdoors, not indoors. Evansville tornado, many people that would normally hear the sirens did not hear the sirens. The wind fields were very strong like they're going to be tonight, and that can change the sound waves, and when you normally would hear sirens, you may not in a scenario like this. The other thing is people are more likely to be in structures that are more susceptible to damage, especially at home in mobile homes, for example, versus at work and, or at schools and those kind of things. Here's a I don't think I can get that to go from here actually. So what can you do? Always check the weather before going to bed. Realize that the weather can change rapidly, and oftentimes it does. Sometimes tornadoes that occur in this time of the year, the late winter toward the early spring, travel very quickly. I think Chris mentioned that. These storms could travel very quickly, 50 to 60 miles an hour, and therefore you don't have as much lead time. It can be on top of you before you know it. There's our website, by the way, weather.gov/PAH or Paducah. Want to go over the watch warning definition here, and hopefully most of you know about this, but a watch means conditions are favorable for the weather event in or near the watch area. They are issued by the Storm Prediction Center through coordination with the local weather forecast offices like Paducah, like St. Louis, Louisville, Kentucky, Nashville, Tennessee, Memphis, etc. Watches tend to be valid for several hours, like the one we have in effect this evening is valid until 9 p.m. So big area, as we saw the graphic of that watch for our area earlier, and a pretty long time duration. And here's another, this is not the watch in effect now, this is just another example, fairly typical size of a watch. A warning, of course, means the weather event is imminent or it's already occurring. It's time to take action if a warning is issued, and that's what we've been talking about, is you need to take action in terms of taking shelter when the warning is issued, because it's imminent or it's already occurring. We know it's already occurring because we get reports from storm spotters, law enforcement, emergency management, and so forth. Those are issued by the National Weather Service in Paducah and generally valid between 20 minutes and an hour. As Chris said, tornado warnings probably 30 minutes or so on average. Severe thunderstorms a little bit longer duration than that. And of course they are for a very small area. Typically a county or two or three, but most of the time even portions of those counties. So a much smaller area. Here's some examples of some warnings. These are counties. Actually, this is a little bit further out to the west. So in these cases, the warned area is actually quite a bit smaller even than the county. What is a severe thunderstorm? We're always talking about a severe thunderstorm. What do we actually mean by that? We mean it's one that produces hail at least an inch in diameter. That's hail about the size of a quarter or bigger, or produces wind gusts of at least 58 miles an hour. Of course, that includes tornadoes. If we expect a tornado, though, we issue a tornado warning. If we expect one without a tornado, but to produce winds of at least 58 miles an hour, then we issue a severe thunderstorm warning. So what can you do? This is really the important stuff. First, you need to know your plan ahead of time, where you're going to go, and you need to be able to do that very quickly. You don't need to think about it. For example, if you live in a mobile home, you need to have that prearranged that you're going to go to a family member or whoever's house you're going to go to. And really, I like the practice of many people I've talked to, and that is, especially for overnight tornadoes, if a watch is issued, they go ahead and go to that shelter location before they go to bed at night. They don't wait and then have to potentially get up in the middle of the night, leave their mobile home and go to the sheltering location. Have your weather radio turned on and have fresh batteries for backup. Something that I see fairly often is a tornado will do damage, take out power lines before it gets to somebody that's in the path of it. If they don't have batteries in their weather radio and those power lines are taken out before the warning's issued for their particular area, they don't ever get the warning. So that's why it's absolutely imperative to have backup batteries. And it could go out when the tornado hits your area and then another warning be issued later, and you wouldn't get it, obviously, if you didn't have backup batteries. So be sure you have a weather radio, you have it programmed correctly, the county or counties that you want in there, and I would really suggest not having too many counties, because we see people tend to turn their weather radios off if they have too many counties programmed in there, and have those fresh batteries in there. We normally say change the batteries with the time change in the fall and again in the spring, but given that's not for another week and a half or so, I would really encourage you, that would be one good action item this afternoon, is to put fresh batteries in your weather radio. Numerous other ways to get weather information. You have your favorite media sources out there, radio, TV. Those are good ways to stay up to date on the weather. Of course, there's all types of social media. You're watching through YouTube right now, so yet another way. What else can you do if you don't have a weather radio? Or really, I want to say, in addition to a weather radio, have a smartphone, a tablet, or a computer to get the warnings. You need to have a backup way to get warnings. No technology is infallible. We see weather radio transmitters occasionally go down to communication failures or other reasons. And the same thing with cell phones. They are not infallible either. So if you only have one way to get the warnings, you're in a pretty risky situation potentially. Already talked about sirens. Do not rely on sirens unless you are outside, and never rely solely on sirens. If you're in a mobile home, we've already talked about that, but whether it's anchored down or not, you need to move to a more substantial structure. In a two-story house, you want to go to the lowest floor in the most interior room. That is always the rule. The lowest floor, most interior room, you need to be in a room with out windows. That's very important, because most of the fatalities and injuries in tornadoes are from flying debris, especially the upper part of the body. which brings me to another point, and that is wearing a helmet is a best practice in tornadoes that will protect your head to a large degree from any flying debris. Regardless of where you get, you want to cover your body with anything you can find, cushions, blankets. Again, flying debris is the #1 concern. If you're fortunate enough to have a basement, that's the absolute best place to go in a tornado, a basement or a storm shelter. But even in a basement, you need to be cognizant of what's above you. And that's why we say if you can get under a stairwell that goes to the floors up above the basement, that's a great place generally to get in case debris falls in. Most of the times debris doesn't blow in so much as it falls in. A lot of times it's the tornado is departing, but you can get debris in the basement. So you need to get under something sturdy. Pretty much I've hit most of these. You know, again, the above ground man-made shelters can provide plenty of protection. There's even safe rooms out there that are available to build into your house even after it's been built. I've even seen them put into garages where they can basically cut into the concrete in a garage and install a storm shelter there. Already talked about this. Always you want to lay low, especially if you're caught out in the open. You want to be as low to the ground as you can in a dip or low spot in the ground. The closer you are to the ground, and if there's a depression in the ground, chances are the debris will fly over top of you, plus the wind speed is, the closer you are to the ground, the closer the wind speed is to zero. Sometimes you just have to take shelter, depending on your situation, the best option you have. And if you're caught outdoors, you know, hiking or something like that, that might be the case. Things you absolutely want to avoid, any place with high ceilings, gymnasiums. We talked to a lot of emergency managers and school officials today, and that's a big concern with ball games and different activities going on in schools across the area this evening, and that is somewhere, again, that wants to be, you need to avoid at all costs. Shopping malls, churches, large department stores, etc. And again, 72% of deaths in our region occur in mobile homes, so that's why we're hitting that very hard. Vehicles, again, a concern as well. Some other sources, you know, you want to keep up to date. That's absolutely imperative. We've talked about weather radios and sirens. Be sure you know where you're at, especially if you're traveling. You know the areas you're going through. If you have the newer cell phone that has the WEA chip in it, wireless emergency alert chip, and most likely it does if it's a newer type of cell phone, a smartphone, you will get the alerts for tornadoes and flash floods regardless of where you're at. But otherwise, you need to know where you're located as you're moving through an area traveling. Power outages can be an issue that may affect the information sources, so that's one reason, again, we say why we say to have multiple sources. You know, look at the warnings, the polygon area, keep your cell phone charged, flashlights, call, you know, you may have to call or text for help, so that's very important. Even posting on social media while you're in a shelter. Some of the local TV meteorologists, I've heard them talking about that with some of the tornadoes and severe weather that's passed through our area. Coordinating where you're at with family members, that's very important. Also, a best practice from some of the tornadoes we've had in our region is once you get a warning, is calling family members, loved ones, neighbors, etc., letting them know about the warning. That's another way to ensure that they get the warning. Nighttime tornadoes, as far as our trained spotters, any of you that are on, you know, we talk about it's more dangerous and more difficult to spot tornadoes at night. That's why we generally recommend you stay at a fixed location to spot at night. By the way, if you go to our website, weather.gov/Paducah, all of our spotter classes on there. If you're not a spotter, or even if you are and want to take one of our free classes, they're all listed on our website. And some of the other concerns, again, many people have already gone to bed and may not get the information, and that basically is why, along with the location that they're at, is why nighttime tornadoes are such a concern. 85% of the deaths in our area have been with nighttime tornadoes. One thing I can't stress enough too, and again, we have a flash flood watching effect tonight for our region, and that is this. The number one way people are killed in flash floods is driving through flooded roads, and especially at night. There was one event we had a few years ago, our neighbors to the south, 11 fatalities that occurred overnight with flash flooding. And it's people that generally don't realize the dangers of water over the roads. In some cases, the road surface may not even be intact. So what do we say? Turn around, don't drown. And please, pass that along and think about that. Never drive past barricades. They're there for a reason. And in addition to your well-being, you could put the first responders in jeopardy if you have to be rescued. So remember that. Turn around, don't drown. A few final thoughts. Remain calm, be prepared, have your plan in place. You have the keys to keep yourself and your loved ones safe. So knowledge is power, and you have the knowledge now. Stay informed. You have all of our sources. Pick your favorite weather sources, if it's TV, online and so forth, whatever, to keep yourself informed as we go through this event and any other future event. So with that, if you haven't asked any questions, I think we still have Christine Welgus from our office answering questions on the chat side of YouTube Live. Otherwise, we really appreciate you all tuning in with us today. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you'd like to see differently as we do this in the future, and we certainly will be willing to adjust and try this again, different way, same way, again, according to your feedback. And again, appreciate you tuning in. Thanks once again.